Hi, it's Jason here at Fraser Valley Rose Farm, and you might be coming to this video because you've had a loss in your family or a friend and you're looking to plant a memorial rose. Well, first of all, let me say condolences on your loss, but second of all, I want to say that it is actually a lovely gesture, nice life-affirming and satisfying gesture to plant something in their memory, whether it be a tree, a garden, or in this case, a rose. There are some pitfalls, and if you're brand new to roses, let me talk a little bit about what you can get hung up on if you're going through this process. First thing is rose selection, and it's about the name of the rose. And what I often see is people will choose the name of the rose in memory of the person that they've lost. So for instance, they might choose something like Dorothy Perkins or Ethel as a rose because it matches the name of their lost loved one, not knowing at first that those two roses in particular are vigorous ramblers or vigorous climbers and will take up a ton of space in the garden and may not be suitable for the planting location. In addition, those roses also only bloom once in the spring in general, with just a few scattered blooms later on, and so they may not be a very satisfying memorial in that way. So getting hung up on that name can be a serious impediment. The other thing that can happen is that you can find what you think is the perfect name, something like For You with Love or Irish Eyes, and then once you start searching for the rose, find that it's not available in your local area, if at all anywhere, keeping in mind that many thousands of roses have been released over the years. So this comes down to my first piece of advice is, first thing you should do is choose your supplier or who you want to buy it from, and then choose from their selection. Trust me, this will save you a ton of frustration during the process. Now, I'm definitely not pushing you towards one supplier or the other. Just choose somebody who's reputable and local in your area perhaps, or a large mail order supplier where you know that they're going to have availability. And then what I can say is that generally their best assortment is going to come in the late winter or early spring when they're shipping roses to everyone. So this might be your best time to pick out a rose. Now, it also happens to be a great time to plant a rose. So if you can sort of target yourself around spring, and I know that may not match up with the memorial for your loss, but what you can do is obviously memorialize the way you're going to, and then regather with close family or friends during the spring for sort of a planting ceremony or a planting gathering, something informal, and that lines up with the perfect time to plant a rose. Something you may not know about roses, if this is your first time getting into them, is that some of them are own root roses and some of them are grafted roses, and this is just a production method that they're made by, but the grafted roses are on one rootstock and then they've been grafted with a top stalk, like apple trees would be. The problem with those ones is they tend to have a predetermined lifespan. They might last for 10 or 15 years productively in your garden, and then they tend to wither away after that point, whereas the own root roses can last forever in your garden or indeterminate in your garden if well cared for. So I would in general point you towards the own root roses if you can find a supplier that gives you those, but the grafted roses are not a bad choice too, and again they tend to be a little bit faster growing and very satisfying to put into the ground for a quick performance in the garden. So I'm not saying one or the other is a wrong choice, but those are your two choices. And once you've settled on a supplier of roses and you start your shopping process, I would encourage you to look well past the name of the rose, because that doesn't tell you about the garden qualities, and I really think that's what you should focus on, is something that's going to be easy to grow, fit your space well, give you good fragrance or color, or something that reminds you in character of the person that you're memorializing rather than narrowly focusing on the name. You may find something rather general like the rose Memory or Memoire in beautiful white, or something like Remember Me in really hot orange that is suitable for your purposes. But some of the other qualities that you can focus on are things like a brightly colored, a lively colored rose like Fellowship in a bright orange might be a fantastic choice, or the casual generosity of bloom of something like Belinda's Dream, whether your loved one was named Belinda or not. If you get hung up on that name, you might overlook something like Julia Child, which is a beautiful yellow floribunda that performs beautifully in the garden, lots of blooms throughout the season, and is healthy and easy to take care of. And if you get too hung up on the name, you can remember that many roses have gone under different names over time, like Julia Child has been sold previously as Absolutely Fabulous or Soulmate, if that helps you out. Time to start thinking about how you're going to plant this, and let me just give you the absolute basics or a primer of how to grow roses. And site selection is probably going to be the most important thing to success of your rose. Now, wonderful spot for it. If you've looked at a place where a garden has grown before, like a veggie garden or a flower garden, and you've seen plants do really well, that's a good sign that your rose could do well there. And that's really the best thing to choose from. A sunny location with a deep, rich, well-drained soil obviously would be ideal, but at a very minimum, have a look for 6 hours of sun a day, roughly. And also, when you're digging into the soil, if you find it's rocky or compacted or competing with the roots of trees, avoid that spot. Also think ahead to the winter, because if it's going to be a spot that collects water over the winter, and if you know that, stick away from that spot. Roses really won't handle winter wet well. Once you do start digging that hole, hopefully in a beautiful spot in the old veggie garden, then don't over amend straight away. Like they talk about when you're seasoning food, it's easy to add some later, but it's hard to take away any that you put right now. So some people tend to put too much compost or manure or fertilizer into the planting hole. I'd say stick away from that. If you've got a good garden spot, just backfill with the native soil, and you can always amend later. I hope you found this helpful on the topic of how to plant a memorial rose and how to choose a memorial rose. And if you have any questions or comments, please drop them into the comments below the video. I'll see what I can do to help.